Around the time Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion was released on Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation, I had a couple friends visit me in New York for the weekend. We hadn't actually seen each other since one of our best friends passed away in that same summer, so naturally we were ecstatic. But part of me also feels a tinge of fear whenever I'm seeing old friends. Responsibilities and expectations tend to change pretty gradually in life, but I feel like when you see an old friend for the first time in a long time, all that change is just fast forwarded right in front of you, so you feel like you're just growing up way too fast. Now, I don't know about y'all, but my biggest fear about growing older is this feeling that any aspirations or dreams or interests that I currently have are that much more difficult the older I get. It feels like when you get older, those just slip away closer to becoming more difficult and just never happening in your life. But after my friends left and work sort of died down for the holidays, I was reinvested in the story of Crisis Core Reunion and reintroduced to Zack Fair. The lessons from his story came into my life at a time where I felt I really needed them. And they reaffirmed to me that the dreams I have are safe as long as I can learn to embrace them. Crisis Core first introduces us to Zack while he is on a seemingly important mission in Midgar. From the start, he is just electric and ambitious, and this recklessness ends up costing him a very expensive sword and forcing his master to jump in at the middle of his mission and save him before he is about to be impaled. As he looks at his beaten up apprentice, Angeal pulls out his classy flip phone and selects abort mission from the menu screen. And it turns out the entire mission was just a simulation. This whole sequence is really to set Zack up as someone who is not only emotionally immature, but also immature as a soldier in second class. He's literally an apprentice when we meet him. Zack immediately pleads with Angeal and says something like, "Hey man, I was just getting warmed up, why'd you cut the mission?" And Angeal just kind of ignores him. He's like, "Zack, embrace your dreams. If you want to be a hero, you need to have dreams and honor." Now, this line really falls on deaf ears, with Zack being someone who is not really interested in weird, cryptic advice. But what we're really hearing here is a plea from an old man in Angeal who feels like his dreams are past his prime. It's not actually clear by this point, but Angeal's really begging Zack to focus on what he cares about, because he wants him to be successful where he feels like he failed in life. Angeal is a man whose foray into soldier was made difficult by his family's financial insecurity. At an early age, he learned the importance of frugality and being very mindful and careful with his possessions, so much so that to this day, he refuses to fight with his iconic Buster Sword unless absolutely necessary. We soon learn that Angeal's father actually financed the forging of the Buster Sword as a sort of gift when he was accepted into the program. But this financial investment would end up costing him the rest of his life. His stepfather worked until he died to pay off the sword and never fully did. And to honor that sacrifice, Angeal chooses to fight with the standard soldier sword and keep the Buster Sword in as pristine of condition as possible. His family really lost everything to get him where he is, and he has no choice but to be very, very rigid and decided in his rules and his ways. And everyone else in Zack's life is carrying an attitude of hopelessness throughout the game. This is actually why Final Fantasy VII and the universe it takes place in is so heavily criticized for melodrama and edginess. But when you start to play any of the games in the Insular series, you start to see that it's less of a trait written for specific characters, and honestly what seems like a cultural norm, if that makes sense. The people in the world of Final Fantasy VII, from Nibelheim to Wutai to Midgar, all seem to socially accept that being somber and shy and unresponsive is kind of the way to go. And it's only through the main characters that we actually see this on full display. So with Sephiroth's calm monotony or Cloud's quiet insecurity. In Final Fantasy VII, it really does feel like the incoming destruction or the oppression of Shinra is permeating through the people just by the reactions you get when you encounter them. There's this dialogue sequence that takes place fairly early in the game between Lazard and Zack, Lazard who's the director of Soldier, where he asks Zack, what are your dreams? To which Zack responds, I want to be a hero. And Lazard responds to Zack and says, good. Unattainable dreams are the best kind. I think only in the world of Final Fantasy VII would a response like that be at all acceptable to say. Zack is forced to grow up almost as soon as we meet him. There is a very tumultuous history between Angeal, Genesis, Sephiroth, and their relationship with the Shinra conglomerate, and this leads to the rogue outbreaks of Genesis, and slightly later, and very unexpected, the rogue outbreak of Angeal, who is, again, Zack's former mentor. I like to call them the adversaries of Gaia, aka the original Soldier First Class, Sephiroth, Angeal, Genesis, and I think they're all cut from the same cloth. They're all pushed past their limits of sanity once they find out that their existence is fabricated for the benefit of Shinra. And where these adversaries are masterminds behind all the fighting that we do in Crisis Core and in the original Final Fantasy VII, we are really meant to see Shinra as the villain of the entire story. This is because they're a manifestation of all the vices that mankind is supposed to be able to overcome. And they've built such a vast wealth and power inequity in the modern society of Final Fantasy VII that the rich are completely placated, and the poor are utterly dejected. Humanity, as we know, in the Final Fantasy VII universe is actually very accomplished. In fact, one of the big reasons why Final Fantasy VII made waves when it was first released is because of its futuristic, tech-driven storyline and setting. Once we actually started playing the game, we realized that the tech was what was pushing humanity, ironically, further back. By achieving so much in science, the people of this world are able to literally suck the life force out of the planet. And with this unlimited energy, their creative drive as a people has completely stagnated. All they do is build tools and equipment to harvest more energy, and create militaries and special ops groups to protect their energy. It's actually brilliant how the writers took the trope of the evil empire and replaced it with its modern-day equivalent of an unstoppable megacorporation. Shinra is so devoid of spiritual and moral understanding that they have studied the history and religion of their planet, but only in an attempt to harvest more energy. Yes, Gaia legends speak of a fabled mythical promised land, only available to the ancients, wherein an infinite supply of lifestream and therefore Mako energy is available. The only problem is that it's not a place. It's a divine state of being. These people literally come across ancient texts of spiritual enlightenment only to willfully misinterpret them as a way to create more wealth. Connection here that I just have to mention. In the Holy Quran, in chapter 18, the cave, there is an important verse that reads, "And who is more evil than one who is shown the divine, but turns away, forgetting what he has done? Behold, over their hearts is a veil, preventing them from grasping the truth. Even if you invite them to the straight path, they would never allow themselves to be guided." This is by no means a religious channel, but I can't deny that my familiarity with religion as a concept made me so sensitive to how Shinra pursued knowledge on the ancients only to misinterpret their faith, leading to their colossal demise in the original Final Fantasy VII game. Something about the way Shinra moves, and something about the way people in the Final Fantasy VII universe operate and think just makes me feel extremely alone when I play a game that takes place here. The dread you feel playing a game in this canon is so real. And I say that as a good thing. It has an unrivaled atmosphere. It gives us anguish to see what humanity looks like in the game, and a bit of fear too, for where our own planet is headed. Zack's mentors in Soldier First Class are completely torn apart and exhausted by the reality they are a part of. Genesis is overwhelmed with vengeance, and Angeal with guilt. And in this hell of a world, we are praying that Zack can keep his composure, embrace his dreams, and somehow rise to the occasion despite all of the incoming trauma. Angeal's hysteria leads to a final, fatal confrontation with his old apprentice, Zack, wherein all of the claustrophobic isolation completely sets in. And it is here that the Buster Sword and the role as mentor come to him. And after taking up the Buster Sword, the sense of responsibility truly overtakes him. To become the hero he dreams of being, he instructs soldiers' recruits, while maintaining a consistent, loving relationship with his newfound partner, Aerith. He also passes on Angeal's old advice. To the new recruits, he says that if they want to succeed, they'll have to embrace their dreams and protect their honor. Zack has grown up and has a much better understanding of what Angeal wanted for him. But his goal of becoming a hero is still unfulfilled, and the advice he passes on to the new recruits isn't coming from experience. It's kind of like when we give our friends advice to never give up, What proof do we have that that is actually effective? How do we know that embracing your dreams will yield any sort of benefit? In fact, we literally have proof to the contrary up until this point. On top of that, if you're Zack, all the people who believed in the idea of embrace your dreams are gone, crumbled beneath their own baggage. Except for Sephiroth. The chaos of Genesis and his rebellion never fully go away. Sephiroth and Zack, alongside Cloud, who is an infantryman, go to Nibelheim to investigate the village's Mako reactor. Nothing is ever the same for any of them. It is here that the group encounter a sorrowful Genesis, who kindly introduces them to the cosmic evil resting underneath the reactor. In a contaminated and irradiated room, they find monsters at the feet of an ancient alien labeled Jenova. Sephiroth locks himself away in the nearby Shinra Manor, pining through sensitive documents detailing Shinra's careless decision to reawaken the evil of Jenova and inject countless zygotes with her cells. The truth starts to set in for him, and he realizes that he is one of many, many life forms created from Jenova's cells. A lapdog of Shinra, and by any stretch of the imagination, a monster. After 7 days in his study, Sephiroth lays waste to Nibelheim, completely going insane. And in that decision, Zack loses his last mentor. There's no more role models left for embracing your dreams. In losing Sephiroth, Zack was confronted with the choice of his lifetime. Give up on Angeal's hopes for him, or trust his dead, failed mentor and try to be a hero where all others had failed. It's very common for us to quickly dismiss advice when it comes from someone who we view as imperfect. I think that's really silly. The only real experience and knowledge comes from failure. It can often be those same people with checkered pasts who are the most effective at steering you away from situations they once suffered. Now, that's not to say that we should all go and befriend a bunch of murderers, but we can all stand to gain something from a higher capacity for humility. I think Zack shows most of his growth after losing Sephiroth. In his early days, we'd never expect to see him listen to a second of Angeal's lectures. But by the end of Crisis Core, Zack has fully synthesized Angeal's teachings, and he implements them for the rest of his days. Before they can escape Nibelheim, Zack and Cloud are captured by the infamous Professor Hojo and his department of evil scientists. For the next 4 years, their bodies are used in his laboratory and exposed to intensive Mako research experiments, leading to poisoning that their own reports say is irreversible. But one fateful day, Zack is overtaken with a surge of strength after envisioning his former master Angeal. He manages to break himself and Cloud out of their toxic prison, but as a valuable asset, Shinra is not ready to let them taste freedom. You can't really tell here if Zack is actually ready to die. The person I see facing down death doesn't feel like he's one of those completely stoic and resolute warriors by any means. I see someone who is feeling crushed with anxiety, not really sure what's going to happen to Cloud when he dies, not ready to accept that he won't ever see Aerith or his family ever again, and perhaps even hoping that he might be able to escape once again with his life. I really don't know, but I am content with the mystery, to be honest, because when Zack is lying at Cloud's knees, ready to join the life stream, his legacy is given the gift of immortality. That same plea that Angeal made with Zack all those years ago finally comes back, but this time, it's coming from a person who followed through on the advice they are giving. Zack became the mentor that Angeal never was, and in doing so, proved that his vision meant something after all. Embrace your dreams. Cloud is already woefully insecure, and trauma, combined with the deep emotional wound at his failure to qualify for the soldier program, caused him to develop a sincere fixation on carrying Zack's legacy and honor. Memories that never belonged to him became a part of who he was. They began to take shape in his mind as proof that he is capable of overcoming all odds. Cloud's story to come would be an arc of inner strength, confidence, and self-actualization. He would learn over the course of Final Fantasy VII that he was worthy of this multi-generational legacy all along, and that he never needed to lie to himself in the first place. And to a certain extent, that's kind of what I'm doing here. I don't know for sure every detail that the writers were trying to convey with this story, but I'm telling myself that there is meaning in this tale. I want to find inspiration in it. I want to feel like I am capable of achieving whatever I set my mind to, no matter the odds. That was Angeal's promise to Zack, and through Zack, to Cloud. Dreams are meant to be embraced. Thanks for watching.